Well, thanks everybody. It's been, I think, over 4 months since I've seen or talked to most of you. And so it's great to see a few faces and to hear some familiar voices. Really appreciate the ability for us to do this virtually and try to get you caught up on a lot of activity that's been going on in Placer County there. And as well with all our partner agencies who've all agreed to participate tonight, kind of in a standard format that we've used at the forum, but with using some of our IT tools so that you'll be using the chat room to ask questions, and Kelly will go over all of that. But first up, I wanted to give a little update on what the Board of Supervisors has been up to for these last 4 months. And again, I want to thank Hillary Courtney, who's in the background running our IT. So if we have issues, you might hear another voice that chimes in to help me. First off, I wanted to announce a couple things that we're going to put up in the chat box, which is there is a statewide Tele-Town Hall this Thursday, July 9th. It's on the hosted by the Fire Insurance Commissioner. And we are going to attach the link to that. It's from 5 to 6 p.m. on Thursday, July 9th. And you can email the insurance commissioner questions for that Tele-Town Hall meeting. No guarantees he'll answer every question he gets asked, but certainly insurance rates and preparedness for fire season are certainly continue to be very important topics throughout my district, especially in Foresthill and the foothill communities. Recently, the Board of Supervisors has had we've had our standard every 2-week meetings, but our last meeting, we had an update from PG&E, and specifically we asked a lot about the public safety power shutdowns and what they were doing, what progress they were making toward hardening our communities and providing some of the microgrid areas that they had presented to you last summer. They have sectionalized some areas of Foresthill, and so they are installing a microgrid in the PCWA office area and around Foresthill High School. And it will include 1 gas station being able to stay open in a power safety shutoff. And we've asked PG&E to give us a map to show us further what specific businesses and areas will be able to operate even during the shutdowns. So I think that's really important to all of us that we understand what we may be faced with again this summer after those long duration outages last fall. They did also update us on doubling the number of weather stations and technology for more accurate detection and wind detection, and a website that will show the 7-day forecast. So as much as possible, PG&E is going to be able to hopefully give us sooner updates and projections on when they may need to do power safety shutdowns. We'll get that information out to all of you as soon as we get it from PG&E. Kelly was talking with Brendan Sanders just an hour ago, and he did assure us that at least 1 gas station in the PCWA area would be up and running.
What, may I ask a question? Is it going to be?
Sharon, we're gonna hold questions till the end. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
Thanks. Just so I can get through all the updates, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot.
Okay.
The county also is going to receive, we hope, approximately $40.8 million in CARES Act funding. Yeah. And at our last board meeting, we directed up to $8 million of that, 20%, to assist local businesses and nonprofits through some of the challenges they faced during the COVID-19 shutdowns. So look for that information. The board, it's coming back to the board. Kelly, I'm thinking the end of July. Is that correct, or Sherry? And so we'll be working with the Sierra Business Council as well as the Placer County Community Foundation and the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation to distribute those funds to come up with a grant protocol And at least I, as one board member, and I think others agreed that we really want to look at where the need is the greatest, who's been shut down the longest, who has had access to other sorts of assistance, and try to make sure we distribute that funding as fairly to those in need as possible. That is the highest percentage of any county in the state of California from CARES Act funding to local businesses. So I'm really proud that Placer County is in a position, financially stable and sound, that we're able to distribute as much of that as possible. And depending on next rounds and what comes through from the federal and state government, we may be able to even augment that as well. So stay tuned for that information. We did adopt our final budget. We did reduce it by about 1.3% in light of some of the funding deficits that we anticipate now, with sales tax and transient occupancy tax being down. Property tax was ahead of our projections in our last year's budget. So again, the county's in pretty stable position right now. None of us know where the next phase of COVID will go and what we're facing moving forward. But we at the county have reduced our budget and can reduce it further if need be to meet those. We also dealt with the Charter Review Committee, and I think some of you are familiar with the Charter Review. Placer County is a charter county, and we have a recommendations from our Charter Review Committee that held extensive meetings throughout the county. And those we made whittled those down to 4 that the Board of Supervisors agreed to put on the ballot in the November election. So you'll be looking for those. They're primarily, none of them are controversial. The controversial one got voted out. So they're all non-controversial. One splits the Civil Service Commission's administrative and hearing duties to make sure that there is independence between those two functions. One approves the board removed the board's supervisors need to confirm appointed department heads, and just leave that to the county CEO, who does the hiring of the staff under him. We removed some of the bid thresholds that were in opposition to the state bidding thresholds, so those will be in alignment with state law. And the final one was requiring that elected officials in the county maintain residency within the county.
Oh, yay for that.
So we did that as well. So that, look for all of those on your November ballot. I don't think there should be any controversy with those 4. And the Charter Review Committee did an outstanding job with public meetings throughout the county to hear those. We also, tomorrow's meeting, well, back in May, we did an urgency ordinance to reduce outdoor retail regulations and sign requirements to allow businesses to spread out into sidewalks and parking areas. We are going to be renewing that tomorrow and extending that, pending a positive vote, which I don't anticipate any issues, extending that through October. I really want to commend our county staff at all levels, have been working so hard on so many issues. But that is one of the ones where we wanted to help the businesses that had to reduce their occupancy within their restaurants and retail establishments and allow them to spread out further and still try to recapture revenues that they've lost during the crisis. We also were able to launch the 211 system, started on July 1st. And so that is the referral system. You saw a presentation at the forum again last year, and it's a free, confidential, multilingual information line that directs people to services and resources within their community. And we did also start Curbside Library service, began again. That started in Auburn and is coming up to North Lake Tahoe to begin July 7th. I don't have an update on when we're going to see Curbside in Foresthill, but Kelly has reached out to our librarian and see what we can find out for you. Maybe we'll even get an answer tonight while we're on this call. But we're continuing to push to reopen slowly and safely all of the county services that we provide you. And then finally, tomorrow, we are also talking about our Recology agreement and the fees, garbage collection fees that do affect Foresthill. And we'll be talking a little bit later, and I think we can cover some more details on that, Jared, later when you're presenting. We are also talking about a tax sharing agreement with the city of Lincoln, and discussing that at tomorrow's meeting. We'll also be hearing a report from our audit committee, annual report that the Placer County Audit Committee provides to the rest of the Board of Supervisors. And as I mentioned, the emergency ordinance and extending that for another 30 days to allow outdoor retail and dining to continue and move forward. Also, we'll be getting our standard update on COVID-19, which you're going to hear from Dr. Sisson tonight. She's able to join us and provide you that update herself, tonight's agenda. So I didn't want to take too much more time other than I miss you all. Thank you for tuning in tonight. And we have a lot of thanks to give to all of the agencies and our partners that are participating tonight. I really appreciate your time in updating the community through this forum, unfortunately not in person. And as far as questions, Kelly, is it okay if I take a couple questions right now? Okay, she's nodding. So Sharon, you had a question you wanted to ask, and I'll take questions on my part, and then we'll move forward with the other questions later.
Okay, well, one thing is, I think if somebody lets me in so I can have my face could be there, that'd be nice, but right now I just look like a blank thing. Sorry.
Yeah, we're keeping we don't have bandwidth to put everybody up, so only the presenters' faces are up. That's why you only get to see a few of us, because it'll get overwhelming to our system.
So I wanted to, well, two things. One was, so we don't know exactly where or how far the PG&E is going to do the underground at all, and how far up they're going to do, or are they going to be able to go down to Wharton's or not? Or do you know?
We believe they're trying. Oh, Mike is shaking his head no.
Mike, is it going to go up to town a little bit more into town?
If I may.
Yes.
The latest information that I have that's been provided to me by PG&E is it will go only down to the Sierra Gas and across the street to the Dollar General, and that's where it'll stop. And it's just their capacity, and we are in line to extend for next year.
Right.
So
Is it going to be on both sides of the road then?
Just enough to catch the gas station, but mostly the high school area, the Placer County Water, that area, the Dollar General, and the gas station. And it's not going to be everybody on both sides of the road. They only have so much capacity, and they promised that they would be working on one for next year.
That would cover more.
Yes, Sharon, we do expect to continue to have them expand, but they are under pressure to get many other communities with some baseline services. So every community has at least fuel and some access to food during these shutdowns. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering, because Wharton's is a major market, number one, and I wanted to see to make sure that, if possible, that the medical facility also had electricity, which is down a little bit.
Okay, so we'll I know that Kelly had reached out to Brendan to get an exact map. And Kelly, can you follow up with Brendan to ask that question that Sharon said? Okay, great. Thanks, Sharon.
Yeah, and I have an announcement when we have a moment. I don't know when you want me to do it.
Can we do announcements at the end? Would that
be? Yeah, that's fine.
A lot of people waiting to present. Thanks, Sharon.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Well, we'll move on then, and Kelly's going to take over and start facilitating our updates from all of our community partners.
Great. So we have community reports. I reached out to everyone, and I heard back from several. So I have, I believe, most of them on the line. I think possibly, so sometimes with Zoom, I can't always tell if it's a phone number, if someone is on the line and just hasn't been switched over to a panelist. So Jesse Morris, Battalion Chief Morris, if you're on the line, and if Gary Kirk is on the line, can you hit the raise my hand button, and then we'll find you in the attendees and move you over. So I do have a couple of phone numbers on here and someone named User. Okay, so User, I have you. I'm gonna promote you to panelist.
Hold. I'm moving.
The person marked User, can you let us know who your name, what your name is? Okay, well, so go ahead and mute yourself. And then when I call your name, you can unmute yourself and do your update. And then, so once again, Gary Kirk and Battalion Chief Morris, if you would raise your hand, and then we'll go ahead and move you over. So the first one I have, I'm gonna call on each of you and then have you update. If you could keep as close to 3 minutes as possible. I know we haven't met in a little while and we have a whole bunch to update, but just for the length of the meeting, if we could try to keep it to 3 minutes, that would be great. And then presenters, make sure that you, your audio is muted, so that way we don't hear any background with the different presenters. And then, so first up, oh, and if you have a question, the attendees, if you have a question, then go ahead and type your question in the question and answer portion. It's at the bottom in the middle. If you type your question in, I'll be able to relay it to the updater, and we can ask a question that way. So the first person I have updating is District Ranger Michael Woodbridge from the United States Forest Service. So Michael, if you want to unmute yourself, and then you can go ahead and give an update.
All right, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great. All right, well, thank you, and appreciate you guys putting this together. I know it's been a while since we met, so wish we could have done a few more of these to hear questions and concerns from folks, but I'll try to keep it brief here as much as I possibly can. Just got through with the 4th of July, always a busy weekend on the forest, and this year, no different. In fact, actually different in a way that it was even busier. So lots of camping, no major incidents, happy to say. Lots of little incidents. And we did a lot of real full court press engagement with campers and visitors over the weekend. We had all our firefighters out there, and also a lot of our staff really educating a lot of folks about campfires and how to responsibly recreate. So happy to say that it was a fairly good weekend in that regard. And yeah, this whole season that we're seeing here is busier than any season we've had in the past. So people are raring to get out, and they're coming out to the forest, which is great. But obviously more people, more issues at times. So happy that we had a good weekend without major issues. We are in a high fire danger, actually a very high fire danger for our rating. So wildfires are a real possibility at this point, which is why it's always important that people are careful, and even more important when we get to this point in the summer. So we'll pretty much be at a very high fire danger for the rest of the season until we start getting humidity and wetting rains, which doesn't usually happen until end of September. We've been in fire restrictions since May 29th, so we made a decision that based on not only conditions, but really also about our ability to respond in the pandemic time period here, that we need to go ahead and enter restrictions a little earlier than normal. So what that means is if you want to have a campfire on the forest, you need to be in a developed campground. You can't go out and have a camp outside of those places, we call it dispersed camping, and have a campfire. So we've been in those restrictions since May 29th, and we will be in those until we get rains again in the fall. So all of our campgrounds are open right now, all our family campgrounds, and they've been very busy, pretty much at capacity. Our group campgrounds are not open, and that's obviously because of not being able to have congregations. So, we're not supposed to have groups of 10 or more, and that's what those campgrounds are all about, those group sites. So our group campgrounds are not going to be open this season unless something drastically changes. But all our other campgrounds and facilities are, including our OHV staging areas, which are always very busy as well. One exception to that is Robinson's Flat Campground. That is closed because of hazard trees. So we have a arborist who went up there and looked at the trees and found that it is an imminent threat for hazard trees. It's not dead trees, which are usually pretty easy to spot, and we knock them down when that happens. But we actually looked at the trees very closely, and all the true firs in that campground are having a root disease, and so we're going to need to do some major tree work in there, unfortunately. And until that happens, it's closed. And then the last thing I'll say is just that we're continuing to do a lot of work on the forest and on the district. A lot of our vegetation projects and other things are moving forward at full steam. So we're obviously mitigating for COVID exposure to our employees and our operations and our visitors as much as we can, but we are continuing to move forward on those projects to prevent wildfires and to promote forest health. So happy to say that continues. Are you taking questions now, or do you want to take those?
Yeah,
over?
so if anyone has any questions, go ahead and type it in, and then I can relay it to Michael.
Okay.
I don't have any questions so far.
Okay, well, I'll stay on here, and as
Okay.
others talk, and if there's questions come up, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Good to see everybody.
It's good to see you. Thank you for coming. The next presenter I have, or report I have, is Battalion Chief Jesse Morris. Are you on the call? Hey, Jesse, if you're on the call, can you unmute yourself? It looks like he is not on the call, so I'll move on. And then to the next report is from Foresthill Fire Protection District, Chief Mike Ridley, if you want to unmute your call. And then, and if anyone has any questions for the chief, feel free to click the Q&A at the bottom and type in your question.
Well, good evening. I can tell you that Chief Morris is on a fire in Gilroy. He was up most of the night doing firing operations to protect and keep that fire contained. I had a Zoom meeting with him earlier today. So with that, for 4 months, as you said, there's a lot of things happening. Our operations have not slowed down at all. I'll let you know that our calls are averaging about 60 calls a month now. March was our busiest, and thanks to the late March snowstorm, that was our busiest month. And EMS continues to be our basic business at 64%. We have been responding along with the Forest Service into the forest for a lot of medical aids. Working with the Forest Service, I'd also like to say thank you to the Forest Service and CAL FIRE. We also upstaffed. We added a water tender for the 3rd and the 4th to provide 6 people on duty instead of 4. It was very quiet. We only had 1 incident of fireworks that I was aware of on the 3rd. We did have a few calls on the 4th, nothing major. In fact, one of them was a call that the U.S. Forest Service Battalion 41 ran across. We did some education. There was no major fireworks, which is a good thing. And I would like to thank them for staffing for 24 for that period of time, and also CAL FIRE with 2 engines. So the community was well protected and was out on patrol till the wee hours of the morning. The department's healthy, just to let the community know. Our COVID-19 responses are as marked as dispatch does that. And our supplies are good. Thank you for the county and Placer OES for allowing us to do that. We've now had our vendor be able to catch up with us. And we also had some community members step up and give us some masks. So we're good. We earlier this last month revised entirely the vision statement, mission statement, and the core values of the Foresthill Fire Protection District. So we have those will be coming out. Also released in the last, the messenger was a Measure B 1 year later, which has a significant amount of what has happened in the last year for the Fire Protection District. I will let you know that we also, 2 weeks before that released, but we are one of 10 communities in the entire United States that received a grant for the Ready, Set, Go, which is for programs to deal with wildland fires, community egress, and information and things like that. So we're working with the International Association of Fire Chiefs for that grant. We're pretty proud of one of 10 in the entire United States to get that grant. On that grants, we have applied for many state and federal grants, and ranging from all-terrain vehicle for all seasons for the use on the Tahoe National Forest, but other places, to replacement and enhancement of our COVID response and supplies, and in between. We are currently also working, it's due in the next couple of days, is our AM radio for early evacuation. We're pursuing that hot and heavy. We had a Zoom meeting this morning with a lot of players talking from OES, from Placer County OES to the sheriff to all the major players in the area for evacuation drills and tabletops and things like that to prepare ourselves. We've applied for software to assist us in that. We did respond to Nevada outside of at the end of last month. We participated in a strike team to Nevada to assist them with their fire that they had. It was wind driven. Just to let you know that we are participating in the state OES mutual aid system. And as like I said, we're busy. And we haven't missed a step, and we're healthy, and we participate as much as we can, and we've been just plugging along as normal. The only thing is our office is still shuttered. We have occasional staff in there to process paperwork, but we haven't opened our doors there. And we also have our main office manager is taking calls and doing work from home. Our stations are shuttered from the public for the obvious reasons of the virus, because we are not a large department and we can't allow it to get in because it'd be devastating to our response. And I could go on for about an hour and I won't. So if there's any questions, and I will stay also on this for a little while to answer any questions if there's any that come about. And I'm sure I missed something, but like I said, for 3 minutes, when Kelly gave me that 3 minutes, I told her, yeah, 4 months and 3 minutes would be very tough.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. You have a lot going on. We do have one question for you, Chief. It says time frame on evacuation procedures you mentioned for Foresthill and setting up by zones in Foresthill trial runs. So more information on evacuations if you have it.
That is in the Ready, Set, Go grant. We are targeted for, with the Ready, Set, Go and evacuation process and defensible space exercise is scheduled for the summer of 2021, just because of the late notice of the federal government and with the COVID. We have other things in the process, and depending on if the grants go, we will be progressing a lot quicker. But we do have the budget constraints for some of the software, but we are working on it. We also just received information for the county to be working on part of the evacuation and the overall plan for Foresthill as it pertains into the county. So we're participating, putting data into that. So we should be functional with that by next year, if not sooner.
Great. Thank you for the answer. And then again, if anyone has any questions, just click the Q&A button at the bottom and type in your question, and we will ask your questions. So thank you so much, Chief Ridley, for.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate it. So our next report is from Foresthill Fire Safe Council, Gary Kirk. If you could unmute your microphone, you can begin your update.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. First time using Zoom, so it's a whole new process. Real quick, to date, we have 11 Firewise communities within Foresthill. We have 8 that are in the process of being recognized, and they're in different stages. The Middle Fork Tree Mortality Program that we have, to date for 2020, we've taken 31 trees from 31 trees from 12 different properties. And let's see, the Michigan Bluff Shade of Field Break is well on its way. I don't have the completed acres at this particular time, but they're out there definitely working on a field break to save Michigan Bluff. The Todd Valley 2 Shade of Field Break will be finished in the fall. And our CWPP update is in the process. We'll be getting some information from the Alliance to an OES to go ahead and pass out to the community for it's a question and answer type of thing. Get your feedback so we can complete the CWPP for this year. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Gary. Really appreciate it. Any questions for Gary? Chief Ridley, we did get one question just now, if you can answer. So it's.
I read it.
Oh,
I'm prepared.
Okay, great. Okay.
The department has opened up and prepared a emergency operations center, if you will, department operations center in our boardroom. We are able to staff a incident we've put up computers, monitors, and brought all the technology that we have to run incidents from that location. So if any of our participants and cooperators need operation, I've sent this out. So if we have a fire or the public safety shut off or anything, we can run emergency operations from our boardroom and provide you with basically the support you need to do it. So that offers up not only to for us, obviously, is to the Forest Service, to CAL FIRE for initial operations, to Sheriff. It's been offered up to all the local participating agencies, but it could be used for the county for the power safety shutoffs. It will be staffed. We're working on policies now for when we staff that for public safety or high wind events, severe fire weather. It will be staffed up with a few people, and we hope to augment it. There's room there. We've made room and set up with identification vests and things for the California Highway Patrol, the Sheriff, the PUD, And anybody that wants to come in and be part of a joint operation, so we can all work towards the one goal of keeping Foresthill safe, and we'll all they have to do is contact me, or dispatch knows how to get a hold of me 24/7, and we can open it up. One of our board of directors can get that thing spun up pretty fast, and we'll be operational. So that's one of the bigger things that I kind of forgot. It was listed in the messenger, but wanted to be highlighted. So it's there if we want to do things, and or need to do things. And it can just be for anything. It could be for an event, public event. It doesn't have to be. I know we aren't going to have a public event in the near future, but when that comes down, it'll be operational for that also. So
Great, thank you so much. So our next report is from Foresthill Unified School District, Jack Kramer, the superintendent principal. Jack, you can unmute your microphone and begin your report.
Good evening, everyone. Supervisor Gustafson, nice to see you. Let's see, Jack Kramer, superintendent principal for the school district. And it seems the main topic or the main question, especially as I'm running through town, is, well, school. Are you opening, and how? And at this point, the reality is it's still not crystal clear. The COVID landscape, it's been constantly shifting and pivoting. And the topic itself of when school opens, it has been and it continues to be a work in progress based on the information that we have at the time. But nonetheless, what we do know for a fact is that for the school, our opening date is August 20th, and we will open. And so what I am committed to on behalf of the school district is education for all and each. And what I mean by that is we will have programs, so plural. We're going to have programs that are based on the individual circumstances of our families and also their comfort level. So at this point, we have 3 programs of which they will be able to select from. One would be the traditional learning physically at school, all 5 days a week. The other is the opposite end of the spectrum, which is learning from home, all 5 days a week. And I think most of us at this point know it as distance learning. And then in between, we have what will be hybrid learning. So about half the time will be physically at school, and the other time, half of the time will be at home. There will be more details at our July 13th board meeting, of which the initial proposal and informational with, as I said, a lot more detail will be provided at that board meeting. But that is the basis for how we will start the school year, which is those 3 programs that I've mentioned. Now, school opening, though that may not be crystal clear, the future of our district, it is. And it's crystal clear to me that the future of our district is quite bright. And evidenced is really by our Board of Trustees and the actions that they took at our last board meeting. And part of that is the investment within our budget to commit to starting the new school year with all of our employees intact with their full normal schedules. Additionally, the Board of Trustees, they've committed to almost $200,000 worth of technology. And that comes in the form of what will be 250, almost 300 Chromebooks. So that that puts our school at a one-to-one device, meaning that every student will have access to their own Chromebook, meaning that they will not have to share. And additionally, with the hardware, we will also have educational software to address language arts as well as math. And myself, as well as the staff, are very excited about that huge leap in terms of technology for the district and the school. So to me, The future is certainly bright for the district, despite our COVID challenges. And I'm really looking forward to seeing our children again, and looking forward to the start of a new school year that's going to me, be full of hope and opportunities. So thank you for the time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to give the report. Does anybody have any questions for Superintendent Principal Jack Kramer? Feel free to enter it in on the Q&A. Our last, no, second to last, report is from Foresthill PUD, Neil Cochran. Neil, if you want to unmute your microphone and then begin your report.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to report that all of our operations have been in operations since the COVID shutdown started. We've never stopped. We are an essential operation, and we're in operation, and we're keeping up. I have three things. They all have to do with water, strangely enough. First, we had requests after last year's power shutoffs for a drinking water source for folks whose well pumps could not run without electricity. So last week, we installed a faucet outside the main office for the public to use during power outages. This faucet shuts off by itself automatically after use and will be available free of charge for anyone who needs drinking water during power outages. So thanks go to Supervisor Gustafson for bringing this need to our attention. Thank you very much. It's in operation. It'll stay operation until winter comes or someone comes in and breaks it. Number two, we completed the state required testing for lead and copper in customers' inside water pipes last month. This test is performed every 3 years, and the laboratory report showed no excessive evidence in 20 different locations with samples for both lead and copper in water pipes in people's homes. No additional testing is needed until 2023. This potential metal contamination can occur when homes whose plumbing were installed in the 1980s using soldered connections that contain those two metals. In addition, our treatment plant also removes acidic compounds that might exaggerate such a situation to make it occur inside customers' inside plumbing. So our customers are generally well protected from the possibility of such metallic substances from being found in their drinking water. Number three, the district continues to work on a water transfer for this year. A buyer has agreed to purchase up to 2,000 acre-feet of water in the late August through the September 30th timeframe. A notice of potential transfer was submitted on May 13th and advertised in the Foresthill Messenger and the Auburn Journal. A 45-day comment period was completed on June 26th. Negotiations with the buyer and discussions with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and the State Water Resources recording regulations and details of a transfer through the Folsom Reservoir and Dam and the American River are nearly completed. A definitive decision by both of those two agencies regarding approval is expected in the August timeframe. As we've said in the past, water transfers in California are extremely complicated and time-consuming. They cannot be depended upon to occur in any given season or water year. Such transfers will generally happen only during dry years like this year, when supplies are less abundant for agencies who don't have their own reliable source of water. I might add that the potential revenue from this transfer would be in the area of $500,000 after expenses were taken care of. So at that point, any questions?
If we have any questions, I don't have any right now, but if anyone would like to ask a question, feel free to do so now. I have one more of the reports. So I reached out to park staff for the Foresthill Parks and Trails Subcommittee to get an update. Lisa Carnahan replied and gave me some information which I'll share. So feel free if you have any questions for any of our reports to go ahead and ask it, and we can follow up with them in the meantime. But so Lisa's report for the Parks and Trails Subcommittee is that coordination between park staff and the subcommittee is being done to find the best location for a bocce ball court. It will be an Eagle Scout project with volunteers from the community as well as assistance from parks. One of the possibilities is to replace 2 of the horseshoe areas with 2 bocce ball courts, and input from horseshoe players is being sought. So if you play horseshoe and want to send a comment into parks, feel free. You can send it to Lisa directly. If you want to email me, I can forward it along as well. That would work as well. So, and then the second update is that park staff have been working with community volunteers to provide upgrades to the tennis courts and make them multi-use tennis and pickleball. Park staff filled in the cracks, and a volunteer group temporarily restriped one of the tennis courts for pickleball. So parks purchased the paint to repaint the tennis courts, and the volunteers will be helping with that project as well. One of the courts will then be restriped again for pickleball. Parks purchased equipment box for the pickleball tennis court users to store equipment, and it has been placed inside the court area. So if we have any questions, if you have any questions, we can you can email me and I can forward them along to Lisa, or if you have Lisa Carnahan's email, you can email her as well for any follow-up. And then she wanted to add one last thing not related to the park subcommittee, but she wanted to let everyone know that there are goats currently at the Silverleaf. It's the 8-acre area in Todd Valley, and they'll be finishing this week. So it looks like that they are taking care of some of that vegetation in the Silverleaf area. So those are the updates that I received from parks regarding that. So feel free to ask any questions if you have them. So with that, we are done with the reports, and we're going to move on to our updates. So we have a COVID update, Placer County Business Resource Center update, and then one from Recology. So first we'll hear from Dr. Sisson. So what we're gonna do as far as the questions go, we have a Q&A portion at the very end of the meeting where you can raise your hand and ask a verbal question. So if you wanna do that at the end after Recology's presentation, you can click the raised hand thing, and then we will we'll go to you and you can ask your question. And then, or if you dialed in via phone, you can dial 9 to queue in for the comment, and we'll call your name and unmute your line to allow you to ask your question and give your comment. So, and then as always, if you want to type in a question, that is available to you as well. You just click again on the Q&A on the bottom. Sorry, I'm repeating myself a bunch with that one. So first we have Dr. Sisson. She's our Placer County Public Health Officer, and she is going to give us an update on COVID. Thank you so much, Dr. Sisson, for joining us tonight, and you can unmute yourself. Oh, we don't hear you.
How about now?
Oh, yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I was muted in like 3 different places. Thanks for having me. I would like to give sort of my basic update going over our numbers in terms of cases and hospitalizations, and then say a little bit about the implications of those numbers, and then a little bit about our testing and just some general advice for residents to protect themselves from COVID-19 and help reduce the spread within the county. In terms of our case numbers, as many of you are well aware, they continue to increase. Here in Placer County, we are now at 911 cases. If you follow our data dashboard at placer.ca.gov/coronavirus and then click on data, that's an addition of 34 cases yesterday. The day before that, we set a record with 49 cases in one day. What this translates to is a 33% increase in the last week and a 71% increase in cases in the last 2 weeks. That means that our 14-day case rate, and this is one of the metrics that the state is monitoring closely as part of their county data monitoring. So it's the number of cases per 100,000 residents over the last 14 days. About a month ago, we were at 27 cases per 100,000 residents. As of this morning, we're at 98.4 cases per 100,000 residents. I'll come back to that number in a minute when I say a little bit about implications. Hospitalizations have also increased here in Placer County. We currently have 25 residents with confirmed COVID-19 in Placer County's 3 hospitals. So that's Sutter Roseville, Sutter Auburn Faith, and Kaiser Roseville. So of those 25 cases, 5 are in the intensive care unit. Those 25 cases represent residents of Placer County as well as surrounding counties. Of Placer County residents who are cases, 13 are currently hospitalized with 5 in the intensive care unit. So that typically is hospitalizations in both Placer County and Sacramento County, and occasionally additional neighboring counties. So that is where we are on the hospitalization front. That I will say we've had an 88% increase in hospitalizations between last week and over the last week compared to the week before. So that is a significant increase. So let me say a little bit. Actually, before I do that, I want to go back. I gave you the county-wide numbers, but since this is a Foresthill webinar, I would be remiss if I didn't zoom in a little bit for those of you in the mid-Placer area. So on our data dashboard, we show general region counts for South Placer, Mid-Placer, and East Placer. Foresthill falls solidly in the mid-Placer area. And so of the 911 total cases countywide, 123 of those are in mid-Placer. And then zooming in further, in the Foresthill zip code of 95631, we have a total of 7 residents. Fortunate that those numbers are low at this point. But certainly our countywide numbers have increased substantially. So let me then come back to speaking of the implications of these rise in numbers, specifically the case rate per 100,000 over the last 14 days. In addition to the triggers that Placer County put in its attestation to the California Department of Public Health to move into stage 2, those triggers would indicate when the county would need to go backwards. The state of California subsequently added a set of county data monitoring metrics that are in addition to the county approved triggers for going backwards. And Placer County is on the threshold of ending up on the state's monitoring list for the 14-day case rate per 100,000. That threshold is 100 per 100,000. As I said earlier, we are at 98.4 as of this morning. Doing a little bit of algebra, if we add 22 cases today, that would be reported tomorrow, we will be at 100 cases per 100,000. So that would be quite likely given the increases in the last few days. So what this means is when Placer County hits the monitoring threshold of 100 per 100,000, we are placed on the state's monitoring list, or some people call it a watch list. After we've been on that list for 3 days, the state then requires the county to, 1, close its bars entirely, and 2, to shift to outdoor operations in several sectors, including restaurants, wineries and tasting rooms, family entertainment centers, movie theaters, card rooms, and I may be missing one. So again, Placer County is not at that point yet, but it appears, based on current trends, that we are likely days away from needing to take steps to slow the spread of COVID-19. And the reason why the state has selected those particular sectors is that they encourage people to gather in groups, often beyond household members. It also encourages, or it makes it difficult for people to wear face coverings. And then, of course, being indoors increases spread of COVID-19 compared to outdoors, where the amount of virus can be diluted in a larger volume of air. So the other trigger that I wanted to say a little bit about is the hospitalizations. Placer County, the state has not been monitoring our hospitalizations because up until the last couple of days, we've had fewer than 20 hospitalizations. But once a county reaches 20 hospitalizations, the state begins tracking the change in the 3-day average of hospitalizations. So it compares the latest 3 days of hospitalizations to the previous 3 days in hospitalizations. And if that has increased by more than 10%, then you would also land on the state's monitoring list. So it is, given that we had an 88% increase in hospitalizations in the last week. Again, that's a different way of measuring it. We haven't yet, I haven't yet seen the calculation. My team has done it, and I'll be sharing it at the board meeting tomorrow for where we land in the change in the 3-day average. But more than likely, we will exceed that 10% cutoff. So again, we are not on the list yet, but it appears that that is the direction that we're heading in. So a few sort of words of caution and reminders to everybody, in an effort to keep our numbers down, is, 1, for all businesses to follow the guidelines in terms of requiring face coverings of employees as well as customers, but also physical distancing of at least 6 feet, basically at all times. The other piece is gatherings, and this is something that is much more challenging for public health to have an influence on. These are not regulated necessarily. These are private gatherings. We have many cases associated with birthday parties, Mother's Day, funerals, weddings, and essentially the state messaging on this is that the only gatherings that are permitted at this time are protests, places of worship, and wedding ceremonies, but not wedding receptions. So any other gathering of non-household members is a violation of the statewide stay-at-home order. And the reason why we're so concerned about gatherings is because you get a lot of people who have not been in close contact with each other, suddenly mixing. And if in close quarters, often without distancing and with people not wearing face coverings, and often indoors. And all of those are a recipe for coronavirus transmission. Approximately, we believe that 40 to 45% of people who are infected with coronavirus do not have symptoms. So that means you can feel fine and be able to transmit disease to others. And that is indeed what we're seeing at many of these gatherings is somebody's asymptomatic at the time, then later becomes symptomatic, test positive. You're infectious for 2 to 3 days before your symptoms start. And so that is the concern, and that is why gatherings, we've had people at a birthday party of 50 people. That's, potentially 50 people who are going to get coronavirus because one person went to a birthday party before they had symptoms. So I can't say strongly enough discouraging people in Placer County from gathering with people outside their household. And if you are going to gather, one, don't, but if you do, please do it outdoors. Please wear face coverings. Please stay 6 feet apart. This is serious, and this is the cases, the hospitalizations are increasing, and I don't want to have to come back and report that our deaths are also increasing. So I know people are tired of staying at home, and human beings are social animals. We crave connection, in-person connection with others, but essentially now is the highest risk time that there has ever been in Placer County from a coronavirus perspective. We're seeing more cases, significantly more cases being reported each day compared to when we shut down back in March. So now is the worst possible time to have that gathering. And I know people are tired of staying at home, and people feel like we've worked hard, we just can't do this anymore. And I get that, but we have to continue on if we want to slow the spread of COVID-19. I wanted to say a couple things about testing. We have many sites where Placer County residents can get tested for COVID-19. Our first recommended site, if you have a regular medical provider, is to go to your regular provider. That way your doctor is aware of your test results and can give you the best advice for your own situation. If that does not work for you, if they aren't able to get you in quickly, or if you don't have insurance, then Placer County has partnered with OptumServe and with the state of California to host 2 test sites that offer testing free of charge. The closest one to Foresthill would be the Rockland site at the library. We also have a site up in Truckee. Each of those sites is capable of testing 132 or more. They've actually been exceeding their daily capacity for the last couple of weeks. They can test over 132 people a day, and you do not have to have symptoms to be tested. If you're concerned that you have been exposed to coronavirus but you're not symptomatic, we also encourage you to get tested, and you can do that at those OptumServe sites. And then finally, I wanted to say a little bit about face coverings and just how important they are. As the Placer County Health Officer, I've been strongly recommending that Placer County residents wear face coverings when they can't maintain physical distance in public for several months. And then the state of California on June 18th announced a statewide face covering mandate, which says all people in California are required to wear a face covering when they're in certain high-risk situations. And those include when you are in a public space or lining up to go into a public space, people in their workplaces when they have contact with the public, or when they're in a space that is accessed by the public, even if people are not, if members of the public are not currently in that space. And then specifically for people seeking care at a medical provider or any other health care, it is also required that they wear a face covering in that setting. So just again, this is a requirement statewide, and it is critically important. It's a relatively simple thing that we can all do. It's not the most comfortable thing in the world, I understand that, but it's a small sacrifice to prevent the spread of COVID-19, because again, people can spread disease when they don't have symptoms just by talking or breathing. You create respiratory droplets. And so if I wear a face covering over my mouth and nose, the droplets that I create cannot go through that mask, and you're protected from me. And if you wear a face covering, then your droplets can't go through your face covering, and I'm protected from you. So this really only works, or works best, when everybody wears a face covering. So this is a community act. So I encourage everybody to follow the requirements, but also to do it because you care about your neighbors in your community and your family members. And Placer County has launched a face covering campaign in addition to the state's face covering campaign, to encourage our residents to wear face coverings. And the message is really Placer County residents and Placer County businesses explaining why they wear a face covering, and I think it's pretty powerful. So I encourage you to take a look at those messages on our social media pages. And I think I will stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
If anyone has any questions, feel free to use the I raise my hand button at the bottom if you want to ask a verbal question. If you want to type in a question for Dr. Sisson, then you can use the Q&A at the bottom. If you join via phone, then you dial *9 to raise your hand for the question. So, so on the phone, dial *9 if you want to ask a question. If you are joined via the web, click the raise my hand at the bottom, and then if you want to type in a question, that is opportunity as well. So far, I don't have any. Wait a minute. Let's see.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to say, Dr. Sisson, again, thank you for you and your team's incredible leadership during this pandemic. None of us expected to be where we were in March when this started, and it has been a tremendous burden on Dr. Sisson and her staff, I think all of the county staff, in trying to adjust not only how we work, but how we serve you as a community and meet your needs and keep everybody as safe and protected as possible. So really appreciate your leadership on that, Dr. Sisson.
Sure, thank you.
So as of now, we don't have any questions. Thank you, Dr. Sisson. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and update.
Sure, happy to do it.
Yeah, thank you. So, one, I just got one. If you wear a mask, you're protecting your nose and mouth. What about your eyes? Can you contact COVID?
Yeah, so again, my face covering protects you and your face covering protects me. So you're not wearing a face covering as personal protective equipment, you're wearing it as source control. So if everyone's wearing a face covering, then they're containing their own droplets, and so you don't need to wear eye protection. In a healthcare setting, you know, healthcare workers who are working with patients who can't wear a face covering, they wear an N95 respirator and they wear eye protection, but they're wearing that to protect themselves as personal protective equipment. But you're wearing a face covering to protect other people. And so you do not need to wear eye protection because other people are also wearing a face covering, which protects you.
Great, thank you. So it looks like there's no further questions, so we're gonna move. Thank you, Dr. Sisson, appreciate it. I move on to the Placer County Business Resource Center update. Sherry Conway, the Placer County Director of Economic Development, will be sharing with us about business resources and for small business and nonprofits.
Good evening, everyone. I recognize many of your names. It's nice to virtually see you again. Yeah, Dr. Sisson's a hard act to follow. Let me just preface this. She and I find ourselves tag teaming often in updates, and it's very sobering when you have to follow that that news. So anyway, I'll do my best. About mid-March, more or less, the day the governor declared the state of emergency, we kind of ramped into high gear. My office, we stood up a brand new web page that could be the landing spot for all of our businesses throughout the county to find resources. And you know, as you know, in the beginning, information was slow to come. It was challenging to interpret. It was confusing to understand. So we set up what we called Reopen Placer, and maybe Kelly can share that in the chat. It's placer.ca.gov/reopen. And over time, that's become a wonderful resource for all of our businesses from east to west, north to south in the county. We didn't invent or interpret the state's guidelines, but we lifted them and tried to personalize them for our business community so that if they go looking at, you know, a Placer County website, they could find a number of resources and tools. So we've been building that out for the last several months, putting together guidance for what was then stage 2 businesses. Remember that? It feels like a long time ago. And then with the move into some early stage 3 businesses, and then ultimately with some additional allowance of stage 3 businesses, we kept adding more guidance to that website. We really wanted to focus on education because this, having been a small business owner, I can tell you, this is not what small business owners understand or even care to understand. At a time where almost everyone was forced to close and no one knew, you know, how to pay the rent or where that next paycheck was going to come from. Being this landing spot, the Placer Business Resource Center that normally provides all kinds of great resources for businesses, pivoted to be able to address each little nugget of hope and information. So whether it was the early CARES Act funding, many of you perhaps applied for the EIDL loan, and then later the Paycheck Protection Program, which was announced today. There'll be another round of funding for. So if you were denied or received but need more under that PPP, look for that to come forward in the next couple of weeks. And so we've been there working with our partners to try to share out this information as it's been available from the federal government. And I'm happy to say that although it's a bit of a marathon, you know, trying to keep up with the inquiries, it's been the one thing that we could proactively do. In the beginning, I think everyone was just wringing their hands in a state of shock. But I didn't feel that that was a really good use of energy, and that, you know, if we could really speak one-on-one to those business owners that began calling right from mid-March, making sure every single business owner, if they left a voicemail or an email, they got a call back within that business day. That's personally important to me. So we continue to build out that Reopen Placer site. We've added all kinds of tools, posters that our great graphics team was able to design, and therefore businesses can download and print those, put them in their window. A lot of information on PPE. We were fortunate to receive a bulk order of personal protective equipment from the state. So for the Foresthill community, we worked with the Auburn Chamber to provide distribution vis-a-vis the chamber and the city in Auburn for you in Foresthill. I'm also happy to report we just received notice that we are getting a second, very much larger shipment of PPE. So I'll be working again with members of your chamber and the Auburn Chamber to make sure that Foresthill businesses get some of those masks and hand sanitizers, because as you heard Dr. Sisson remark, the disease is still very much present in our community. We want to make sure that this additional cost, this burden of having to purchase masks and hand sanitizer for our businesses, is not just one more layer of unexpected costs. And for a small business, I got to tell you, I bought a box of masks for my family, 30 masks, just the disposable single-use ones. No, I'm sorry, 50 masks was $30. If you think about a course of an 8-hour shift, you know, you might go through a few. I mean, that starts to build up a cost. So we want to continue to provide that free PPE for our businesses. And so look for that, Foresthill businesses. Let's see what else. I also reached out early on to all of the economic development stakeholders. Some of you on this call are on our weekly Econ Dev stakeholder call, where we really try to use our network of economic development professionals that includes all of the chambers and all of our cities to come together and work in a collaborative fashion that I have to say is unprecedented for this county. And I'm really proud and happy with this relationship. If there was a silver lining to come forward from this, it's this really collaborative, effective working relationship. And we continue to meet every single week because, again, this is not over. And then the last thing I'll say is to touch on Supervisor Gustafson's remarks. The Board of Supervisors in their last meeting was very, very generous in identifying that they would like to earmark $8 million of their CARES Act funding to prop up our small businesses and our nonprofits. We're working with the Sierra Business Council as our prime contractor to help us administer those funds, but really working as well with our community foundations, both in Tahoe and here down in the foothills, to help us identify those nonprofits that are in great need. Because as we know, the goal of some of our community foundations is to prop folks up once they need propping up. So this idea that the small businesses, we need to make sure that they sustain, that they remain open or that they can reopen, because if they cannot, the demand for services surges. And that's where our community foundations work gets harder. So it's a really important relationship that our Board of Supervisors identified in being able to serve both the for-profit and the nonprofit community, to keep them whole, to keep them strong. And again, just to dovetail on Dr. Sisson's remark, if we find ourselves on that state watch list and we are forced to close some of our sectors once again, those sectors like restaurants were already so hard hit. And I do worry that if they are forced to close again or scale back to just outdoor services, that will forever be a challenge for them to come back around. So this small business grant program is going to be a great opportunity to provide some support to our most hardest hit sectors. And I think I'll end with that. I have to plug in my laptop because it's showing me a message. It's gonna die. So, but I'm happy to have any questions that this group may have.
Great, thank you so much for sharing your updates. So if anyone has any questions, you can click the raise my hand button at the bottom. And if you would like to type in a question as well, that works. So,
and again, Kelly, while we're waiting and seeing if there's questions, Sherry, I want to thank you and your team. What an outstanding job you've been doing throughout this to help businesses get reopened, to advocate for our businesses, and to make sure that we have as much information out there to help them get reopened and stay open. And then it's up to the rest of us to really help them stay open by not, taking all the steps and all the precautions we need to not to have continued spread of this virus.
And I did fail to mention one last thing. We do want to hear from the community. If you're out and about and you find that there is a business that just isn't complying, and this is not meant to be a tattletale or to lead to enforcement. My goal is education. We want to know if there's a business out there that just isn't adhering because they don't understand, or maybe they need some free masks, or maybe they need posters, or they just have questions. We'll reach out to them. We want to make sure that all of our businesses have access to this information so that we all do the best that we can. So contact us through the Business Resource Center. I think Kelly can, it's brcinfo@placer.ca.gov, and I can put the phone number as well. So again, if your neighbor's out and your neighbor sneezes across the fence, probably not worth letting us know. But if you're really out and about in an establishment and you feel like they're really falling short of maintaining physical distancing and face coverings, it's like they don't care, let us know, and we'll try to reach out and educate them. Heck, I'll bring them a box of masks. So, you know, whatever it takes to help them so we can all stay open is really my goal. So I wanted to just mention that too.
Great, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Doesn't look like we have any questions.
Okay, I'm plugging in.
So thank you so much, Sherry. We really appreciate
You're welcome. My pleasure.
for
Thank
us.
you, guys.
Yeah, and for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. So we have up next, we have Recology. We have Tia Mitchell, a waste zero specialist, John Rowe, general manager, and Frank Tamayo, operations supervisor, who will be updating us on the Foresthill transfer station. Just some information about Recology and the Foresthill transfer station. And we are also joined by Jared Deck, environmental engineer manager from Placer County's Department of Public Works, to answer any questions that we might have on the county side of things. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and feel free to unmute yourselves and begin your presentation.
Okay, can you guys see the PowerPoint that I just put up?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Frank Tamayo is going to go ahead and start.
Okay, first I want to say thank you for allowing us to present. We really would like to present it in person, but it's just not feasible. So, but I do really appreciate you taking time out of your night or evening and letting us talk about what we love dear to our heart, the community and recycling and garbage. So I want to talk a little about Recology and then talk specifically about your local team here, Recology up in Placer. And I also have John Rao, who's the general manager. I have him next to me at the end. If you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to talk about that. But before I want to talk locally, I want to just let everybody know about where we're at or who we are, Recology. We actually started servicing San Francisco in the mid-1800s. We had our forefathers come out from Italy and doing things that no one really wanted to do back in the 1800s. They kind of really set the model for what we're doing now throughout the country. They were often called the scavengers, and they would go through and sort through items like paper, plastic, bottles, wash a lot of things, and they'd repackage and sell. And that's how they started doing business in San Francisco in the 1800s. There's a lot of people in Recology. They're actually employees now. They're descendants of our Italian forefounders. Our CEO, Mike Sangiacomo, is his relatives worked in the garbage company, and here's some photos of how they used to pick up garbage back in the 1800s. Recology. Let me see the next slide, Tia.
Okay.
A little more about who we are and where we serve. We service Recology about 895,000 households throughout California, Oregon, and Washington. We also serve about 116,000 commercial businesses, and we service about 134 communities. In that, we have about 6 transfer stations where material will come in, come out to the final destination. We'll have 12 what we call MRFs, and that's materials recovery facility, where they'll sort through various types of commodities. We have 45 operating companies that may just be a yard full of trucks, and they go out to service communities. We have 9 organic processing facilities, like for green waste and mulch and food waste, things like that. And we have 3 landfills. And in the map, it's kind of small, but it's kind of widespread. Next. Your local team, which I'm part of, we have John Rao, who's the general manager here. And you probably see John not only in the office, but he's out in the field every day, from delivering toters to washing toters to meet and greeting people, talking about the new regulations, including food waste. We also have on board is Tisha Gill. She's the assistant general manager. We have Scott Pardini, Scott Chamberlain, who's the operations manager. We have myself and Cesar Roman, who is our operations support. We have our office supervisor, whose name is Leanne Granucci. And we also have our public relations manager, Sue Doza, and also Tia Mitchell, who's on the line, who is our waste serial specialist. For those of you who don't know, we do have the transfer station here in Auburn. We're located on Shell Ridge, which is in between Bell Road and Dry Creek. We're open 7 days a week from 8 to 5, and you can drop off various items. We do have an office number, and if you don't get us during office hours, you can leave a phone call and we'll get back to you the next business day. In addition to finding out more about Recology under recology.com. Okay. We provide residential and commercial services to businesses in the city and residents in the city of Rockland, Auburn, Colfax, the town of Loomis, Placer County, and our facility here, and we physically touch or manage over 500,000 tons of material each year. We're 100% employee owned. We're pretty proud of that. It's a structure that allows employees to have a direct impact to provide service, superior service, and then when they retire, there's a benefit from that. We have about 56,000 customers, and in the 56,000 customers, we have about 29,000 in Placer County, about a little under 5,000 for the city of Auburn. In Rockland, we have over 18,000. Town of Loomis, about 2,500. And the city of Colfax, about 703 customers. And I'm proud to say that there's 80 employees here at Recology Auburn Placer, and our day starts up as early as 3:30 in the morning, and all the guys and gals will start their day, and it's pretty proud to service that amount of customers with just 80 employees. Okay, so Tia's going to talk about some other items.
Hi guys, I'm Tia Mitchell, waste serial specialist with Recology. So reducing what you consume, that's the most effective way that we can eliminate waste. An example of this is when you go, you're eating dinner, just putting on your plate what you can eat, because so many times we put more and then it ends up, being wasted. And also in the landfill. So reducing what you consume, reusing products by repurposing them or donating them. This reduces the need to manufacture new products. So, and this reduces the greenhouse gas emissions because we don't have to produce as much. And then recycling converts raw material back into products that we can use to make new products, so we don't have to extract more material. And then composting transforms organic waste into nutrient-rich soil amendment, and this reduces the greenhouse gas emissions. And then it also produces rich soil for our farmers and our community. Landfilling, this is the last resort. With Recology, we try to keep, everything out of the landfill that we can. And so some benefits of recycling. Recycling provides many benefits for the environment and our local community. Recycling conserves natural resources such as wood, aluminum, and glass. It saves energy by reducing the need to extract material. It reduces greenhouse gas emissions because we don't have to produce as much new material. And then it creates green jobs in our community because somebody has to collect, sort, and process and sell all the commodities. So these are some additional services that we offer. We offer debris boxes. So if you're doing a cleanup or a remodel, and just give us a call and we can get a dumpster to you. And then if you have household batteries or fluorescent tubes, you can take those to the Foresthill transfer station. Used cooking oil, we can take that for you at the Auburn transfer station. And then the Foresthill transfer station, we can take e-waste. So if you have like TVs, computers, cell phones, things like that that you want to get rid of, we'll take that free of charge there. And then we have a paint care program at the Auburn transfer station. This allows you to bring up to 15 gallons of paint per day free of charge. We also have, can take motor oil as well as the filters, and we take up to 5 gallons per day. And then we have several household hazardous waste events throughout the year in Placer County. And here's a picture of the Foresthill transfer station. And as you guys probably know, it's open Friday through Monday from 8 to 5. It was originally constructed in 1984, and it provides service to many residents in the Foresthill area. So everything that you drop off here goes down to the Western Placer Waste Management Authority in Roseville, and they go through and sort everything. And if you guys haven't had the opportunity to go on a tour, I would highly recommend it. It's really awesome, and it gives you a little more, you know, a visual picture of what happens. You can also, we sent a link, I'm not sure if you got it, and it's just a short tour with Chris Hansen of the facility. So we just want to thank you guys for inviting us tonight, and then we would like to open it up to any questions that the public may have regarding the transfer station or any other questions for Recology.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to ask a question to Recology or to Jared with the Department of Public Works, feel free to raise your hand or type in any questions that you might have.
So while we're waiting for a few of those questions, I can jump in. Just want to touch on a few other things that we're working on too in the Foresthill area. One of those things specifically is the tipping wall expansion project at the Foresthill transfer station. Due to some residents talking about long lines and issues with people getting in and out, we decided to work with Recology, who's been a great partner. John, Frank, and Tia, we definitely appreciate working with them to actually expand some of the area where you can actually pull up and dump your waste. So we're actually using in-house staff to work on a design project for that. So hopefully that'll be coming relatively soon to get that done, designed, and actually built out there to give us a little more space for people to come up to the wall and dump their material a little more timely. Also, another thing we're looking to do is to add Tuesdays for green waste drop-off. That was one of the things that was brought up quite a few times, that there was issues with long lines due to green waste and people bringing in extra loads. So we wanted to talk through that, and we are applying for a permit to open on Tuesdays. So we're working through that permit process right now, and hopefully that will be in before fall and the big cleanup season comes, and we'll have that in place. And one other item that Supervisor Gustafson had mentioned start of the meeting too was working towards one of the items that we're bringing towards the board tomorrow will be increased collection fee due to the Western Regional Waste Management increasing their tipping fees. We unfortunately have to pass through that cost to the collection fees. But obviously with the kind of unprecedented conditions here with the COVID pandemic, the county is looking to potentially use general funds to pay for those increased fees and defer that actual cost to the constituents and up to 6 months. So hopefully with the board's approval tomorrow, we'll get that in place and the county can hopefully supplement that for a little while. Other than that, I didn't have anything else to add and open any other questions.
It looks like Dan had a compliment.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is Larry. Am I on?
Yes. Go ahead,
Okay.
Larry.
I have a couple questions. One, it's not uncommon to see people coming up Foresthill Road with trucks and trailers loaded with stuff to use our transfer station because it's free. I'd like to see that addressed. I'd like to see the requirement that loads of garbage be covered. Lions Club does the road at the entranceway to Todd Valley Road, and that's where all the garbage is going to the dump. If they could, I don't know, do a little more education or something about people loading and unloading. And my third thing is, on your Tuesday opening, I have a lot of chips already ground up, green material. Will there be a place to dump that at the dump site? Or do you just want regular green material? And I will mute myself.
So you're asking about wood chips? Or? what
Yes,
exactly?
well, I have a dump trailer and a dump truck, and I could bring wood chips. If you're reselling those, I can give you some money. But if you're just having to do some work with them, well, then I'll give them to other people.
Well, yeah, no, we would have to pay to dispose of those.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just give them to other people. And the other two questions are, I don't expect an answer. It's just something that needs to be looked into.
No, and we are addressing that. So Dan is actually starting to ID people when they get there, because we did have a huge problem with people coming from out of the area because they figure, oh, it's free, you know? So yeah, we're working on that right now.
Yeah, because that's something we did back in the 80s when they first started that Foresthill residents could take stuff and a lot of people take advantage of it, and then it's the way it goes. So thank you.
Oh, I know, and then it makes the line need it, but you know, rightfully should be able to use it. So
it's a difficult one for us to police or to manage, in that we see those vehicles too. In fact, we'll have drivers call into us that someone's coming up the hill and we better check them out. Well, they don't show up for another couple hours because they found a friend in Foresthill, and then they come back with somebody that has an ID. So it's difficult, and as Tia mentioned, we're trying to develop some how we could go about it in a better way. It's not an easy problem to fix.
Great. Well, we do have one question, one written question. Any discussion or possibility of adding a trailer area for green waste?
I can take that one. So what I mentioned before with the expansion of the tipping wall, we're looking to expand that area so that trucks with trailers can come in easier, have a little bit easier access, a little bit easier turnaround space, and get up to the wall where they can actually unload it and not block other constituents from using that wall. So that's part of the process and part of why we're looking to do that project.
Great, thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions for the Recology presenters or for Jared? Oh, looks like Susan has raised her hand. Susan, I have unmuted you. Unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Alrighty. I appreciate hearing about the idea of a trailer area. When you're talking about a trailer area, would that be separate? Because I go to that transfer station often. I have to say that as a Firewise team leader for Foresthill community, a community here, we consider our Recology and our transfer station an integral part of fire safety here. So thank you so much for being here. We want to encourage our people to continue to use that transfer station and remove their green waste. Will that trailer area be separate from the existing so that it does move smoothly for them?
So it will not be separate. It will be in the same general area, but we'll be expanding the area so that the place where you normally go up and dump into the larger trash bin
Yes.
will be a bigger area, just so that we can actually fit more people into that wall.
Okay.
Great. I have another question. I've heard Recology, well, I guess it's a question. I've heard Recology will be discontinuing handling CRV recycling. Is that the case?
I'm gonna let John handle that. I'm not sure. John, are you there?
Yeah, this is Frank. Yeah, that is the case. Effective July 1, we no longer will process or handle CRV material.
Okay. I just muted myself. I'm looking for any anybody else want to raise their hand for a question or type one in? It looks like that's all of the questions. Thank you so much for coming by and taking the time tonight to present.
Oh yeah, thank you guys so much for having us. And sorry it took so long with everything that happened. It kept getting put off, so I apologize for that. But thank you. so much. And thank you for helping.
Thank you. And Jared, thank you and your team. I really appreciate the postponement of those fee increases. Every little bit is going to help our community members as we move forward. So really appreciate that as well.
We appreciate it, and it sounds like we have one vote going
Yeah.
forward.
So I know Susan had an announcement, and maybe others have announcements or other questions. So we'll open it up. Susan, did you want to make your announcement?
Hello?
Yes, hi. Susan?
Yeah, I think that was Sharon. Had an
Oh, I'm
announcement.
sorry. It was Sharon. I'm sorry,
That's
Susan.
okay.
Hi, Susan.
Hi,
Sharon,
Cindy.
you had an announcement.
It's me. I just wanted to announce, well, I've got two things. First of all, I've got,
Sharon, I think, do you have your audio on in your phone as well?
hang on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes,
I've got a new iPhone. Oh my God.
Sharon, you need to turn off your, you need to hang up your other call.
Wait a minute. Here, let me see. Okay, now can you hear me?
That's much better. Thanks so much.
Oh God, you know, I have a new iPhone. I don't know how to work it all the way. I'm trying to raise my hands, ask questions, and I couldn't do it.
Oh, no.
I'm doing wrong.
Sorry.
That's okay. Some of the questions got answered. And the other thing I wanted to say is Paula Petronston and some other people had a great big garage sale this weekend, and they made over $900 for the Foresthill Community Fire Department.
Oh, great, great.
They had a special area for
Wonderful.
donations and for people paying money for that. And so that's what they did to try to raise money since we didn't have the garage sale this year.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so I think some other people in town are going to start having garage sales and have a special area to help the fire department. So that's kind of what I just wanted to ask, and some of the other questions sort of got answered. And my other concern, but that was for the U.S. Forest Service, which I can't, you know, he's not there anymore, was in the beginning that they opened up Sugar Pine, but they had no trash cans and no restrooms. And there were people from Foresthill that were going in there collecting all the trash, but they wouldn't pick up the toilet paper. So that's been an issue. And a lot of people won't go to Sugar Pine anymore because they don't believe it belongs to our area anymore, because they have so many people not following the rules and regulations. And we're always afraid that there's going to be a fire, and people being on the boat ramp that should not be up there, and making it so that people coming with boats can't go in. And that's what I wanted to ask with Mike, and I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Well, we'll put you in touch directly with Mike so you can ask him, or you can, or Kelly, email Kelly those questions and she can get them to Mike.
Definitely.
So either way, Sharon, we'll definitely.
Yeah, there's been, I mean, they patrol more now, but there's some serious issues with people coming from out of the area and not being respectful of the land and our water, and having I don't want to say it right way, just that they're not respectful for what's going on, and there's problems with diapers and poops and all kinds of stuff going on. So I think that needs to be addressed. And I don't know if the Forest Service now has put in trash cans, but they did not have the bathrooms open. So there was no place for people to come and go potty. That's all.
Thanks, Sharon. Appreciate that. And we can get back to Mike with that, put you in touch with Mike to answer more. I do believe they have garbage out there now. I know that when they opened some of their facilities throughout the region at the beginning, well, some weren't even open, and there were lots of people using them, and the same situation occurred throughout the forest lands, trail access, and other camping areas. So heard a lot of stories about that both in Placer and Nevada County. So
yeah, I just worry because you shouldn't they opened up the area before they had trash cans and bathrooms, whatever. So until they can facilitate that, I don't think they should open it, personally.
Right, right. Good points. Any other questions or?
Neil had an announcement.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I might let you know that last week the Forest Service opened up 2 new restrooms at the boat ramp. So I think part of that issue is taken care of right now. I want to let you know that on Wednesday at 2:30 p.m. we'll have an FPUD board meeting. It will be an online Zoom meeting. An agenda and a Zoom link. Information was mailed out to our standard email list today, and it will be available tomorrow on our website, our Facebook site, and you can call 367-2511 and have an agenda emailed to you specifically. So board meeting Wednesday, 2:30. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Does anyone have any other announcements or questions that they would like to ask?
That's me again.
Hi, Larry.
I unmuted. 2 things that I hope we're watching. The Auburn State Recreation area is doing their campground service and all that down at the Rucky Chucky area. And I want to make sure that the only access they have to that is through Rucky Chucky Road rather than private roads and that kind of thing. It never did get to the forum because we really haven't done that lately or anything like that. So that's kind of a concern. And this is just kind of repetitious because I know you're already doing it, but that bill to stop all new development or rebuilding or homes in fire-prone areas that guy from San Diego, I believe, put forth. Well, that's ridiculous because, you know, Red Bluff burned, Oregon burned. Are you going to stop all the building in those places? So I hope that our county is paying attention to that bill that he's putting forward. So just a couple things since we don't get an opportunity to talk to you guys too much.
Yeah, well,
pay
you can.
attention.
Yeah, we are, Larry. Thank you very much. I should have brought that up. That we are, and I believe every county has taken a position of opposition to that that bill. And our county definitely has taken that position and is lobbying. We're waiting for I think there's some final amendments that are being made and clarifications, but right now we're still in an opposed position on that. So thank you, but we'll continue to watch that very carefully. It would dramatically affect Placer County if that were to go into place. Other comments, questions, announcements?
Chief Ridley here. I'd just like to thank the community for the donations. Haven't seen that donation yet, but we did receive a $600 donation for the sale of masks at the Valero gas station, along with an family that donated $1,000 to our fund. So thank you very much. And
if you need more, Chief, we're getting another big shipment into Placer County of PPE from the state. So please be in touch with our Sherry is actually, I think, the one distributing all of those. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Are we going to be having this is Sharon again. Is our next forum meeting going to be online again? Most likely.
Well, we didn't call this a forum meeting because we were trying to figure out how best to handle it because not everybody might have internet and we might not have a quorum and we didn't want to miss it. I'm open to your suggestions. It does take us a little bit of logistics to pull this together, but do you want to go ahead and do another one in August? I would assume so. There's plenty of things happening and lots of information to provide. So now that we're starting to get more used to using this and being able to invite the public in and how we use panelists and all that, we're getting a little better at it. So, and Hillary's the star at it, but the rest of us are learning how to do it. We could certainly do that. So I'll look to you, Sharon and Larry and Susan. Do you think this is helpful and you'd like to continue?
I think having public information is important. So you
Yep.
know, those people who want to join in can join in, if even if we can't talk, or they can call in, but they can see what's going on. And I think it's important so that we keep in touch with the community and that you keep in touch with the community. So I think that's a good way to go.
Well, what we'll do then is we'll see if we can get a quorum. If we can get a quorum, we'll have it as a forum meeting. Otherwise, we'll call it a town hall, and then we can continue whether or not we have a quorum. So if that makes sense to you, Sharon, I think that's what I'd recommend, because I think there are people interested in the information, and we want to be able to get that out to all of you. So
I think that's a good way to go. I think there's a lot of people that are concerned, and it's the only way we can all get together and have some kind of voice on what's happening.
Yep.
I go with town hall, makes it easy.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's okay. And Larry, I think your point about what's happening with closing down the communities so that there's no building is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You've got Santa Barbara burned, Oakland burned, Ventura burned. You're going to close them down too?
Santa Rosa, yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
Yep.
Flatlanders.
And we have a comment, regular communication with the public is essential, especially during these times. Please continue the meetings online.
Okay, so we'll do that. I do urge, I've been doing weekly newsletters, trying to communicate best we can. Kelly and I are working as much, if not more than ever, in responding to concerns. So please, if you have items for that agenda or things you want to hear about,
Yes.
Kelly, thanks for all the organization you did tonight. Thanks to all our community partners who stepped up to participate tonight as well. We really appreciate their updates, and please give us ideas for if there's specific issues you'd like to hear about. Otherwise, some of these, like COVID-19, I'm sure we're going to need to update you again on what's going on and cases and restrictions moving forward. So.
And we do have a hand raised. Dan, I'm gonna click allow to talk. It's gonna promote you to panelist. So Dan, you just unmute yourself and you can talk. So Dan, there's a little, at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little microphone. If you click on that, it'll unmute you. There we go.
Hello? Obviously, I'm not Dan.
Oh,
This is Gail Cafferty.
Oh, hi, Gail.
I'm having a little hard time too, Sharon. I guess our age is showing a little.
Well, we can
yeah, I think town hall meeting would be great. Oh, good. Oh, good. Town hall meeting would be excellent. And also just a little FYI from the people that I have been talking to in town, mostly via telephone. What Larry was talking about was their biggest concern about not being able to rebuild in fire zones.
Yep.
And of course, not knowing the exact bill, it's very scary, you know? So information.
Okay, we'll make sure to update you on that at the next meeting. I can probably have our lobbyist explain where they're at and what they're anticipating on that. But they assured me they thought there was no chance for it to pass with all 58 counties in opposition.
Okay. So. Oh, good. And I could just do a really brief thing on the parks if you want. Really brief.
Good. Yeah.
Since the COVID lockdown, they've put doggy bags in the park for the little critters. And the pickleball people gotten together and restriped that portion of the tennis courts to be able to play, and they've been pretty avid on it. And we have a scout working on a bocce ball court. And there's a little discussion on exactly where to place it. So they're working on that. That's about it.
Thanks, Gail.
You're welcome.
Anybody have anything else they would like to comment on or a question? I don't have any questions, written questions, and I don't see any hands raised, so.
And it's 1 minute till 8, so maybe that's our witching hour. So we'll schedule this for next month. And thanks again to everybody for jumping in. If you have any follow-ups, just email Kelly or I, and we'll get back to you on it. And thanks again for participating.
Good job to both of you. Good job.
Great to see and hear.
Yeah,
those
very
of
good
you I
job.
can
Thank you very
look
much.
The best. Larry, you look the best.
Carol's been working on me.
Okay, good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Stay
Good
safe.
night.